Welcome to the workflow application React tutorial. So here's a little bit of what our work is going to look like when we're finished. I'm probably going to add on a little bit more items to it. But as you can see, you've got a to-do list, but you're also building steps. So each step has a to-do list incorporated with it. And then I'll probably add on items like this is on hold, or this is waiting, or this is in progress, or this is complete, or in review. So we'll take this workflow concept here and take it a little further in this tutorial. But this gives you a good idea of where we're headed. And you can also see this is going to be something we can see in mobile. So it works fine here too. It's just responsive. Okay, so let's go ahead and download the login framework from my GitHub repository. And that'll get us started. And this is going to save us quite a bit of time. So since we just want to focus on this one module, and we're not focusing on how to build a JSON Web Token login framework, we'll just use one I have. I currently use this one for all my projects, so I start here. They're all consistent, and I can easily plug in whatever modules I need to in this framework. Okay. Let's go ahead and get this thing installed and running. So npm install for both the client and the server side. And let's go ahead and do an npm start to get our servers running. Localhost 3000 is the client side, and localhost 5000 is going to be the server side. Let's go to MySQL Workbench, and we'll build a new schema called Workflow Task Manager. And so basically we're just building a new database. I named it Workflow Task Manager. Let's create a table called user. And the user is going to be identified uniquely by their email. So that is our key. And it's got a max of 45 characters. And we can change that if we need to, obviously. The password, let's go 500 characters. And the tokens, that token's going to be big. So we'll come around and adjust this stuff here in a little while. And let's do a standard default employee for level. Not that it really matters too much because we're going to send it in. But let's copy this because we're going to need it when we configure the database in the code. All right, let's configure the database. Here is the easy way to do it. Just make sure your key is ready to go. JSON Web Token key is available. Let's put in our host, our user, our database, and our password. Obviously, if you've got an IP address instead of localhost, that's your thing. Let's go ahead and start the backend server, which is localhost 5000. And let's go ahead and confirm that everything's working. And we got null for everything here. Good, good, good. These are all the things we're going to need to have set up. Notice when you log in, that's when the only time it really creates a token. If you create a user, no token is made. So remember that. See here, we've logged in, or we've created a user, and we know who the user is, but they don't have a token. So now I'm going to log in. There we go, our framework with no modules in it. Let's go back and refresh this schema as data, and we'll see if the token is there now. There we go. So now this person's logged in. Let's build the create and delete functionality now. So we'll go into the client side and create a file named workflow.js. This is going to be our workflow component. We're going to import React, and we'll be needing use effect and use state. It's pretty standard. And let's define the variable / function and have the export correct. And just a standard, this is kind of how I always form my hooks. So I start off with the return, and we can start doing our HTML. And as we see fit, we'll add the functionality and the variables. One thing that's important here to know is there's kind of two levels of functionality here. I'm creating steps, and then within these steps there are tasks. So there's kind of two rounds of a CRUD system, create, read, update, and delete. So I want to know which function I'm using in that create, update, read, and delete concept. So since this one was really only a create and a read and a delete, there's no real update for the steps concept. As you can see, I'll pass what functionality we'll be using, and that will determine what panel we'll be showing and which link is active and whatnot. As you can see, if I'm using the add function, this button will be active. Otherwise, it will not, based on that ternary operator. And same thing here with the delete. If I'm using the delete function, that button will be active. And then it'll also determine what panels we'll be showing at the bottom. Here we go. Let's go ahead and plug this into our app. So it's just a file, really. So I just basically get the name of the file, and obviously it's got a variable function in there. And here's our app. Where do I want to plug it in? Chances are I'll plug it in by the main content, but we got to import it first. So I'll do that. Let's grab that file /plugin, and I'm going to put it over by the main content. Chances are I might not even want that main content later, but for right now, if the active module is workflow, then we'll be showing our new component. And let's also make sure that it's available in the nav to get there. It's fairly simple. I'm just going to copy the workflow button link, and then I'm going to put the main content button copy, and then put the workflow together. So we'll just make a copy of that line item link, and that determines our active module. And default, let's just have the workflow showing. There we go. So the steps are there, but they don't really fit in. They're kind of hiding. So let's get those all prettied up. I'm going to use this class a lot. It's called block. It's a width of 100. And it's just kind of a display of something that I want to go all the way across. Our container, like our main content, I'd like it to be a little lower so the nav doesn't cover it. So right now, as you can see, the nav was overlapping and you couldn't see it. So let's just give it a little space. And there we go, 80 pixels. We can change it if we want. But as you can see, also now we have a group of buttons together, and those will determine what function we're doing. So let's go with the first one, is the add form panel. So if we select the function is going to add, we want the form to show up that lets the user add. It's real simple. It's only 2 fields and a button. Because the step, we need to know what the name of the step is, and we also want to know like how much this step is going to cost, or how long is going to be taking. Like, is it 2-week steps, or is it going to be cost $1,000, or some kind of information. You'll see here in a second what I'm talking about when I put these text field inputs together. And as always, the name is the most key element here. That's what's going to identify the fields, as always. This is consistent with how HTML just operates. It's always going to look for the name of the input field. And we got some placeholders to kind of guide the user as to what exactly you should be putting in these fields. We're not too specific. If it's going to be, we could get real specific about, currency and whatnot, but we're not doing that. We just said something has to be there. That's it. there's going to be obviously a function called create step. And as of right now, I just need to get it created and write it so we can render everything. And as you can see, when I'm doing the new step, that panel is available. And as you can see here, I'm going to build the delete panel, which is actually just, for the most part, a select menu. That way you can select the step you'd like to delete. And then there will be a confirmation of, are you sure you want to delete this? And then you will hit yes or no. So let's go ahead and make a placeholder for this function, as we also put together our default for the select menu. Now that the select menu is going to need to go through some data to actually have a menu, items in the menu, and steps data is going to be called. That's going to be what all our steps live in, as our JSON. So it's going to need to iterate through that. Once we have data, this will be going through all the titles, and it will tell us which one wants to be deleted. We don't have any data just yet, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But we'll get it ready. Now let's put the key in for the React to index it. And the value is going to be the title along with the inner text. Okay. Let's go ahead and put some data together so we can see if this all works. Now this is obviously just something default that doesn't really mean anything just yet. It's just a placeholder. But we also want to know how it works and if it is going to work. I would have trouble not having some default data in there initially, so bear with me. You're going to see that I have some naming conventions. The colon not dash complete and the colon complete are going to determine what color our tasks are. If they haven't been completed, they'll be one color, and if they are completed, they'll be another, and that will come into play here shortly. So now if our function is delete, if we plan to do some deleting, we choose that function and our delete panel will be visible. And here I'm writing our delete panel. It's actually an alert warning, and it's going to be real specific about, are they sure they want to delete this item? Because I don't want any human error. For the most part, this kind of eliminates someone coming along to delete something by accident. Or their cat possibly stepped on their keyboard and it was just deleted for some reason. This makes it pretty specific. Are you sure you want to delete the item on deck? And the item on deck is what has been selected for delete based on the change of our select menu above. And so if they say, are you sure you want to delete that? We will confirm it. And the confirm is a real simple kind of toggle box. So in reality, that when they click the thing saying, yeah, I want to delete that, they're not deleting anything. They're actually just opening up the box to say, are you sure? Once the box is open, they'll be presented with something that says yes or no. No will just close the box, and yes will be the actual functionality to delete. So it is a little bit preliminary. Like when someone says delete, it only gets deleted once you confirm it. Now let's go ahead and we select for delete. We need to find out what exactly is the plan. Like what do we want to delete? And if it equals default, then that means that somebody just put the select menu back to the top. And we don't want to delete, you can't delete the default, so we're just going to return false there. However, if that isn't the case, and we do know what they want to delete, we're going to run through and find out what that value is. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and write the function. I'm going to call it the button in here. There we go. So deleting something's pretty easy. I'm doing a loop. Basically, I'm going to go through the loop of all of our data, and we remember what's on deck to be deleted. So what I'm going to find out is, I'm going to pummel through this data and say, hey, does your title equal what's on deck to be deleted? And if not, then go ahead and push this data into our temporary delete array. The only time I'm not going to push it in there is if it actually does equal what we want to delete. And therefore, temp delete will turn into our new object. And that will be our new steps data. So set steps data is temp delete. We're going ahead and just took that one out, and that's it. There we go, and we've defined temp delete. Now, validate is something, if you're familiar with my JWT token, JSON Web Token tutorial, validate is something that goes through and checks the fields and see. In this case, it's just going to check and see if something is written in there. It runs through based on the name attribute of the input field and sees, is there a value in here or not? If there's not one, then we're going to have problems. That there's no input, so we're going to stop the whole create right there. So we want to validate these fields, and it will tell us, it will make it'll give them a class of error if they're not filled in. And if something has a class of error, then I'm just going to stop it. Now I'm going to use a spread operator, so in which case there's no errors. So let's gather up what our current data is. We'll use the spread operator and add our new data to the current object. So whatever the value is of the input field named new step title, that value will come into play as the step title. And of course, the new step price value tasks is going to be empty. It's going to be an array all its own. But the new step price is going to be needed. So let's add this to our default as well. So there's an option here. So this is what our data is going to look like. And we'll put the value in of new step price as well for the step price. So, okay. Now let's import the showAlert function to confirm that everything works. This function is going to allow us to show them, hey, by the way, what you just wanted to do actually worked. And we'll go ahead and update our steps data with the new updated object. I just want to see to make sure this is all working. Obviously the showAlert, if it works. And I'll even let them know, hey, that title, that added successfully. So there's two values being put in, what color of the alert box and the message. And we also want to make sure that the input fields get cleared out if this works correctly. So I'm just going to set them back to nothing. Take the value out of the input fields. Okay, so I'm going to create a step. 2 weeks. There we go. And I can start seeing our data is collecting correctly. There we go. Now, keep in mind, temp steps will show up a lot faster because the state hasn't updated yet. So use the temp within the function. Outside of the function, use the state. Because it hasn't updated just yet. So this is why. And we're also going to do our delete here. And if they decide they'd like to do some deleting, this is how we show the panel. So once a delete step is selected, there we go. We can delete steps right here and add them. And now it's asking, do you want to delete it? And we confirm now it's gone. Make a new one, run this, title 1, delete. Yep, that's it. Everything's working. We can add and delete. And we'll be back.